Located on the campus of Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, Wilson Hall was built in 1965 as a simple dormitory for students. Over time, however, this building became the focal point of eerie rumors, drawing attention from students and paranormal enthusiasts alike across America. Among all the stories circulated, Room 428 of Wilson Hall stands out as one of the most notoriously haunted locations in the Midwest. It all began in the early 1970s when a male student was found dead in Room 428. What made the incident so strange was the lack of any clear explanation. There was no sign of forced entry, no struggle, nor a naturally determined cause of death. The body was discovered in an unusual state, and according to fellow students living on the same floor, the night before the body was found, they had heard odd noises coming from the room, knocks on the door, footsteps pacing back and forth, and an indescribable whistling sound echoing in the air. After that death, Room 428 was never the same. Students assigned to this room began reporting bizarre phenomena. Footsteps in the dead of night, even though the hallway outside was silent. Objects moving on their own, chairs shifting positions, desk lamps falling, even when untouched. Strange lights flickering in midair, appearing and vanishing in an instant, and most unnerving, shadows moving in the mirror or at the foot of the bed, and fleeting so quickly that residents doubted their own senses. Some students stayed only a few days before requesting transfers, citing feelings of oppression, the sense of being watched, and recurring dreams featuring the same image, a man standing silently in the darkness, his eyes completely hollow. The peak of horror came in the late 1970s. A female student, whose name has been kept confidential for privacy, moved into Room 428. Friends and acquaintances said she was deeply interested in spiritual matters, especially astral projection, a mystical practice believed to allow the soul to leave the body and enter the unseen realm. At first, she conducted small rituals like meditation and recorded her strange dreams, but gradually, she became obsessed with crossing the boundary. She believed Room 428 sat on a special energy point where the veil between the material world and the spiritual world was thinner than anywhere else. One night, she decided to perform a more elaborate ritual taken from an ancient occult book. She locked the door, lit candles, arranged magical symbols, and recited arcane chants of foreign origin. Then she sat in the center of the room with closed eyes, beginning her astral projection. No one knows exactly what happened inside that room that night, but the next morning she was found dead by suicide. Her body was in a grotesque position, her face contorted in extreme terror, as if she had witnessed something unspeakably horrifying. On the walls, strange script, written in what appeared to be blood, was scrawled, indecipherable to anyone who saw it. After the incident, Ohio University decided that no student would ever be assigned to Room 428 again. The door was locked permanently, and while people could still pass by, nobody was permitted to open it. Some claim to have seen dim flickering light leaking from underneath the door, even though electricity to that room was supposedly cut off long ago. Cleaning staff avoided the area, claiming it carried a heavy pressure that made them feel nauseated and short of breath. Attempts have been made to explain these phenomena through science, magnetic interference, stress-induced hallucinations, or psychological dynamics in a closed, tense environment. But for many, especially those who once lived in Wilson Hall, Room 428 remains more than just a room. It is a gateway to another world, where the inexplicable still lingers and refuses to be dismissed. Beyond the rumors about Room 428, Wilson Hall is shrouded by other supernatural lore related to its location. Many believe the building's geography is partly to blame for its reputation as a hotspot of paranormal activity. A persistent legend in the student body and local community states that Wilson Hall sits at the center of a pentagram, formed by 5 ancient cemeteries that encircle Ohio University's campus. These graveyards lie in different directions, and when the points are connected on a map, they form an almost perfect pentagon, a shape traditionally associated with occult rituals, charms, and ancient magical practices. The fact that Wilson Hall allegedly occupies the focal point of that shape has fueled speculation of a particularly strong mystic energy conducive to supernatural events. Furthermore, some paranormal investigators and local historians have claimed that Wilson Hall was built atop a Native American burial ground. Before the university campus was developed, the land on which Wilson Hall now stands was supposedly a sacred burial site for an indigenous tribe. The encroachment and construction upon such a hallowed place is viewed by some as a grave offense to the spirits interred there, possibly provoking their wrath from the other side. These beliefs further bolster the idea that Wilson Hall is a gathering place for lingering spirits. Strange noises, unseen shapes, chilling cold spots, and a pervasive sense of gloom. These are all taken as signs that the area still harbors a spiritual veil that remains unsettled. Although Wilson Hall is widely known for its eerie tales linked to room 428, the truth behind the origins of this legend is far more complex and obscure. What is now recounted as one of the most prominent supernatural phenomena at Ohio University actually began as a blend of rumor, speculation, and inconsistent memories. The legend is believed to have originated from a rumor circulating in 1968, when some students referenced a prophecy made by the famed psychic Jean Dixon. According to the rumor, Dixon warned of a disaster or strange occurrence that would take place in a dormitory at Ohio University. However, there is no verified documentation of this prophecy, and experts later dismissed it as unreliable. A coincidental link between the rumor and the 1966 mass murder case involving Richard Speck, where multiple nurses were killed, also contributed to a growing sense of fear and collective imagination among the student body at the time. The story was further embellished in 1974 to 1975 when 3 female students, Susan Harrington, Sue Goyas, and Debbie Ralph Southall, reported strange experiences while living in Wilson Hall. They described bizarre phenomena such as a jar of lotion flying off a table and shattering, or shadowy figures appearing late at night. Although these accounts quickly gained attention and spread widely throughout the campus, there was no physical evidence or independent witnesses to validate any of these events. Everything remained oral testimony, a hallmark characteristic of urban legends. Debbie Southall, who is often cited as the one who performed an astral projection ritual that ended in horrific tragedy in room 428, in fact never lived in that room, but in room 418. Southall later publicly denied ever performing any mystical or occult rituals. She stated that those rumors were the result of misunderstandings, exaggerations, and other people putting words into her mouth. While she admitted to having an interest in spirituality and metaphysics, she firmly stated she had never practiced any esoteric rites during her time at Wilson Hall. Interestingly, despite the lack of concrete evidence supporting the core elements of the legend, the story's popularity has never waned. It could be said that the legend of room 428 does not stem from a single event or person, but rather from an accumulation of disjointed fragments, rumors, imagination, hazy memories, and contagious fear. Over time, these elements blended together and formed a unified narrative, one that may not be true, but has become deeply symbolic in student culture and the paranormal lore surrounding Ohio University. The legend of Wilson Hall, and particularly room 428, has long captivated those fascinated by ghost stories, the occult, and paranormal phenomena. However, when confronted with concrete evidence and scholarly research from credible sources, many of the key aspects of the tale do not hold up. A real-world investigation has illuminated numerous inconsistencies, from rumored deaths and geographic claims to the historical origins of the building itself. First and foremost, one of the central claims of the legend involves the mysterious death of a student in room 428 during the 1970s. However, after reviewing records and information from university authorities, there is no evidence to confirm that any student died in that room during that decade. Official data only records 2 student deaths at Ohio University in the 1970s: David Tishman, who died in an unrelated accident, and Saad El-Maini, who passed away in an incident unrelated to the dormitories. Neither case took place in Wilson Hall, let alone in room 428. Another component of the legend claims that Wilson Hall is located at the center of a pentagram formed by 5 ancient cemeteries surrounding Athens. This symbol is often associated with magic, occultism, and supernatural occurrences. However, upon analyzing real maps of the area, this claim does not stand up to scrutiny. Athens, Ohio, is an old rural region with over 50 cemeteries scattered across the landscape. Various versions of the legend even cite differing cemetery lists, indicating a lack of consistency and low credibility behind the mystical pentagram claim. Additionally, many believe Wilson Hall was constructed atop a Native American burial ground, which allegedly led to unrestful spirits and hauntings. However, there is no historical evidence to support this notion. Instead, researchers have found that the land where Wilson Hall was built lies near or on grounds that once belonged to the Athens Lunatic Asylum, a 19th century mental hospital. The asylum had its own cemetery for burying deceased patients, and this may be the actual burial site that people have mistakenly attributed to indigenous origins. Even so, there is still no verified or documented evidence of paranormal activity related to this area, nor are there any records of unusual construction problems tied to burial sites. Overall, when comparing the legend with factual data, it becomes evident that many of the chilling details in the Wilson Hall story are products of imagination, rumor, and the snowball effect of repeated retellings over time. While this does not diminish the cultural allure of the Room 428 legend among students and believers in the supernatural, it underscores the importance of distinguishing between anecdotal reports and verified reality. The lack of concrete evidence does not entirely rule out the possibility of strange phenomena, but clearly, Wilson Hall is a vivid example of how an urban legend can take shape and proliferate, even without a single, solid kernel of truth at its core. Although the stories surrounding Room 428 of Wilson Hall at Ohio University have become an inseparable part of student culture and local folklore, the truth reveals that most of the eerie elements in the legend originate from imagination, rumors, and vague memories amplified over time. The 3 names most commonly associated with various versions of the legend, Susan Harrington, Sue Goyas, and Debbie Ralph Southall, played key roles in shaping and spreading the story during the mid-1970s. Phenomena such as a jar of lotion flying off a table, strange noises, or shadowy apparitions were all described in their recollections, quickly attracting attention and cultivating a mysterious atmosphere around Wilson Hall. However, upon closer inspection, there is no solid evidence to confirm that these events ever truly occurred. There are no photographs, audio recordings, independent witnesses, or official reports documenting any paranormal activity in Room 428. Skepticism about the truth of the legend was further reinforced in 1978 when a group of journalists and students conducted an overnight stay on the 4th floor of Wilson Hall, an area rumored to be heavily haunted. Their goal was to investigate the claims by experiencing them firsthand and documenting any unusual events. However, the night passed without incident. No strange noises, no ghostly sightings, no objects moving on their own. Just an ordinary, quiet evening like any other in a college dorm. And yet, the legend of Room 428 continues to live on in the collective imagination of Ohio University students and the residents of Athens. The story has been passed down through generations and has inspired modern horror narratives, particularly on the internet. A notable example is the 2014 creepypasta Room 733, which tells of a dorm room sealed off after a series of mysterious supernatural incidents, clearly drawing inspiration from the Wilson Hall legend. This enduring fascination shows that, even in the absence of concrete evidence of paranormal activity at Wilson Hall, the power of a well-told story, laced with just the right amounts of mystery, fear, and ambiguity, can transform it into a lasting piece of cultural folklore. Room 428, whether haunted or not, has transcended its physical boundaries as a dormitory room. It has become a symbol of the unexplained, a space where the spiritual and the legendary converge in the public imagination.